Story 1. I am Bangladeshi. Whatever happens, do not give anyone money. It will either end up going to a scammer or a government official. Story 2. I'm a Bangladeshi and participated today in the protest. Write to your government. Tell them what you saw. Ask them to lodge a formal protest against our government, specifically the ruling party. This government takes great pride in receiving international recognition. Our roads are full of banners of our Prime Minister receiving awards from foreigners. Now try to give her what she really deserves. Story 3. The only thing to do right now is to share news of the atrocities occurring because their government is trying to suppress them. Story 4. Go to the subreddit Bangladesh. There is a thread titled, How Can I Help? Story 5. If you know how to contact someone at Facebook, read the Reddit discussion in the World News subreddit. Otherwise, as Reddit user Thrill of Speed said, donate to groups that support reform, for example Amnesty International. Edit. As Reddit users H3 Rackles and Fix pointed out, go to the Bangladesh subreddit. There is a thread titled, How Can I Help? Story 6. Not to sound like a Debbie Downer, but not much will change. As a Venezuelan who experienced the 2014 protests that left some dead and the 2017 protests that left more than 100 dead, I expect a similar response. The international community will be outraged, and it will be in the news every day for a while. Some politicians will use it as political ammunition. Marco Rubio really comes to mind. Eventually, the coverage will stop. Some countries will condemn the government and others will call for a peaceful solution while doing little in practice. Eventually, it will be forgotten, and a new meme about Donald Trump or another country will be on the front page. Story 7. It would require enormous pressure on our politicians to punish the Bangladeshi government with sanctions and public statements, and on corporations to withdraw from the country. Both actions are unlikely and would hurt ordinary people before they affect the government. There is very little to do besides giving money directly to political movements within Bangladesh and hoping they resolve matters internally, and that the system is not so corrupt that it can simply shut them out of power. Government-sanctioned thuggery is often a sign of that corruption. Story 8. Raise awareness. Let leaders in other countries know their citizens are concerned about teenagers in Bangladesh. United voices will be heard. Story 9. Write to your representative and ask them to discuss it in Parliament. I'm not so naive as to be unaware of how bad governments typically are at this. Besides, it is an AskReddit thread. Story 10. I remember everyone being excited about large social media platforms such as Twitter and Facebook because news would quickly spread. Many claimed that a benefit of these platforms would be that government violence would be much easier to document and send to the rest of the world. What happened to that? Why are we reading about Facebook blocking content and being subject to pressure from small governments? Or is the communication infrastructure being tampered with by governments? Regardless, none of Earth's inhabitants deserve to experience this, and justice should be brought to those who incite, distort words, lie, and promote violence. Story 11. The same thing they did to teenagers in Mexico, Venezuela, Nigeria, Ukraine, Egypt, and Nicaragua. You catch my drift. Story 12. Do not use these human rights violations as a geopolitical pawn, because doing so would create a far worse situation for the Bangladeshi people. References: Korea, Cambodia, Vietnam, Iraq, Libya, Syria. Story 13. As someone from Bangladesh, I do not think people outside or even within the country can do much. The only hope is that the United Nations takes action or that students who have connections to ministers intervene, because the ministers and the Prime Minister effectively hold most of the power. Story 14. There is nothing you can do. This experience will likely leave most Bangladeshis disillusioned with their government. The people are the majority and have more power than they realize. If the government continues to oppress the population and is aware of the lack of faith in it, it should realize that it is practically a fascist state. The United Nations will not be too happy about that. Story 15. I am Bangladeshi. Do not send money. We do not need it. It can ruin the purpose of the protest and undermine our goals. What we need is international pressure on our government. Our media is controlled by the government, So use the phrase "we want justice" on social media and organize rallies or other activities to draw your government's attention. Then our government will feel the pressure and respond to our demands. Story 16. Sanctions. India and Western countries could impose targeted sanctions on the Bangladeshi elite. They own property and investments around the world and will regret being cut off from them. China will not participate, although it would be better if it did. Story 17. For anyone considering asking the United States government to intervene, be aware of the worst-case scenario. If you ask the government to solve the problem and we end up using military action, you cannot then complain about excessive war and military spending. Always understand the consequences of your actions. Story 18. Support Wikimedia Bangladesh, the regional community organization that develops Bengali Wikipedia articles and shares local photographs and videos. International donations to nonprofit organizations are not possible because of government restrictions, but you can join their social media channels or email list. This organization has no paid staff, so expect a humble reception. Wikimedia organizations generally have little funding. This is a small volunteer community, not an international aid organization. Ordinary people meet to talk about editing Wikipedia. Political editing can be dangerous for everyday people anywhere, but any kind of wiki editing, whether about politics and protest or about non-controversial regional topics, helps strengthen the media and journalism base. Supporting the wiki supports citizen participation in journalism and media. See relevant Wikipedia articles for this event. Wikipedia summarizes existing journalism. All pictures and text carry free copyright licenses. Join in to edit Wikipedia. 2018 Bangladesh Road Safety Protests. 2018 Bangladesh Quota Reform Protests. Story 19. Nothing, because the people who say the international community doesn't do enough are the same people who complain when outside actors interfere. Story 20. Everyone should focus on improving the community where they live. The goodness they put out will spread around the planet. Many people try to save the planet in fantastical ways while doing nothing in their own community. Story 21. Americans should not intervene. Bangladesh sits at the intersection of international exploitation of Muslims in Southeast Asia, governance by corrupt military and family-oriented parties, as in Pakistan, an Asian diaspora dependent on remittances, an enormous refugee crisis, post-colonial organized crime, and extreme vulnerability to climate change. That it has done as well as it has, with some of the best economic growth and health outcomes in South Asia, is a testament to the strength of the Bangladeshi people. The last thing they need is American concern trolling similar to interventions in Venezuela, Russia, or Iraq. Start by reading a book about the country, meeting Bangladeshis, or even reading the country's Wikipedia entry. I cannot speak for Europeans or others, but as an American with Bangladeshi friends and family, I think the less Donald Trump thinks about Shanar Bangla, the better. Story 22. Reddit user Sinophobic Dog may be one of the student protesters, so you might want to contact them if you need to get in touch with a protester. Story 23. To everyone talking about sanctions, the United Nations, and other actors involved, I strongly disagree. We do not need more entities involved with their own incentives that make things even more confusing. This is a local problem and we need to settle it locally. It will get ugly and there is no instant fix. Please understand that. The main outcome of this process is that more people become involved in politics instead of remaining complacent about it. We want to reform our corrupt systems, but more immediately we must dismantle the fascist state and ensure this does not happen again. Let us not be emotional or panic, and let us not ask for help from people who do not understand or care. Here is how I want help. Can we have a panel to discuss the situation, provide context, and receive advice on how to organize? Do we already have something like this? Story 24. I just noticed this in my feed today. What the heck is going on there? Story 25. I wish Mark Zuckerberg actually had the courage to step up and help humanity. He is in a position to improve the lives of billions, along with other media giants. Instead, they choose to focus on revenue and shareholders' concerns. He knows exactly what he is doing, and he could not care less. He is a parasite. Story 26. Visit the Bangladesh subreddit to learn about the ongoing atrocities. and spread the word to everyone you can. That will be extremely helpful to us. Story 27. I assume that by international community you mean nations, not individual people. The answer is nothing. Bangladesh is considered a middle power with a growing economy. Trade sanctions are unlikely to disrupt the government, and no one is going to send military forces to help these children, since Bangladesh has a decent-sized military. The United Nations will also do nothing because Bangladesh provides over 100,000 personnel to United Nations peacekeeping missions. This is, sadly, a situation in which they are ultimately going to have to solve the problem on their own. Story 28. Not much. International community cannot even help the Rohingya when they needed it most. Story 29. Nobody would ever interfere in another sovereign state's affairs, except maybe Russia or the United States. Story 30. There is nothing that can be done. The world knows this is happening, yet no action is being taken. It is unfortunate that these people have no means to fight back. Story 31. I am appalled that I have not heard about this outside Reddit. Story 32. Nothing any other country does will change anything, not even invading the country. They have to sort it out themselves. Story 33. Please help spread awareness. I do not know where my cousin is. He is only 12 years old. You can contact your local news, share this on social media, and tell your friends. Story 34. Do nothing. Redditors in the West do not know much about the situation or who is right or wrong. There is too much propaganda. This is a fight between hardcore Islamists, the jailed former Prime Minister Khalida Zia and her fugitive son, and the current Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. The Islamist student body supported by former Prime Minister Khalida Zia is creating havoc, and the government is trying to control the situation. 2 students died in a bus race that had nothing to do with the government. The government can make regulations, which are certainly lacking, but obeying them is the driver's responsibility. Both drivers were arrested. The roads are poor because former Prime Minister Khalida Zia and her son siphoned off trillions of taka. During her 5-year tenure from 2001 to 2006, Bangladesh ranked first in the world for corruption for 5 consecutive years. The agitation became violent as soon as Bangladesh Jatiyatabadi Chhatra Dal, the student wing of Khalida Zia's Bangladesh Nationalist Party, joined. Jatiyatabadi Chhatra Dal has a history of violence and murder, is generally a radical Islamist supporter, and supported many killings of secular bloggers and vloggers in Bangladesh. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party itself is strongly anti-secular and highly religious. Khalida follows in the footsteps of her dictator husband. Do not forget Jamaat-e-Islami, a hardcore Islamic political party that does not believe in secularism. Its student wing is known for bomb attacks and machete killings. It also committed war crimes during Bangladesh's 1971 War of Independence. Its leader once boasted of killing 1,000 Biharis in a single day. Its student wing, Bangladesh Islami Chhatra Shirbur, supports Sharia and only madrasa education. In February 2014, the United States-based defense think tank Information Handling Services Janes published a report titled IHS Janes 2013 Global Terrorism and Insurgency Attack Index, in which Shirbur Bangladesh Islami Chhatra Shirbur ranked 3rd among the most active non-state armed groups in 2013. Every minister has urged students either to return to classes or to stay home. Do accidents not happen elsewhere? Bangladesh has a capable judicial system. Grievances could have been directed there. Bangladesh is not a rich country with a surplus budget. This agitation is nothing more than a ploy by the opposition to sway the democratic elections to be held later this year. It is politics on dead bodies playing politics with corpses. The Bangladesh Nationalist Party and Jamaat-e-Islami both supported terrorism and militancy in India, supporting the United Liberation Front of Assam, the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, Isaac Muiva, the People's Liberation Army and other Manipuri outfits, which found a safe haven in Bangladesh not only morally but also through financing and by providing living quarters after attacks on India. According to Saudi authorities, Khalida Zia and her sons had investments of around $12 billion in malls and other infrastructure projects in Saudi Arabia, money amassed through bribery and extortion. As investigations are underway, More facts have surfaced about huge investments by the Bangladesh Nationalist Party chief's late son Arafat, alias Coco, who died in January 2015. Coco allegedly made enormous investments in Saudi Arabia, all from ill-gotten wealth. He was also wanted in Bangladesh on multiple charges of corruption. Similarly, his brother Tariq Rahman, now in hiding in England, invested several $1 million in many foreign destinations, with a large portion in Saudi Arabia and other West Asian countries. Earlier, there were allegations, many supported by evidence, that Tariq had nefarious dealings, including money laundering and large investments with underworld figures, detrimental to Indian security interests. Story 35. Judging from the results of the protests in Venezuela last year, not much changed. Only sanctions related to international agreements were imposed. Story 36. International intervention is almost always a complete disaster because they do not see you as helping. They see you as a dictator. Story 37. The international community includes people around the world, the United Nations, nations, non-profit organizations, and corporations. The United Nations can send special investigators to write a scathing report. The United Nations can send peacekeepers, but this must be voted on first. Other countries can issue scathing statements denouncing what is happening and question the legitimacy of the government. Other countries can also impose sanctions or threaten to move manufacturing hubs to neighboring countries. Economic measures aimed at the powerful can also harm ordinary families and neighbors. Concerned citizens around the world can urge their officials to take action. Send letters with vivid images. Use colorful yet polite language, and follow up with a phone call. Donate to international non-governmental organizations that support human rights and human rights defenders. One example is the Economic, Social, and Cultural Rights Network. There are many others. Research before donating. In the coming months and years, the international community needs to return and promote its principles in Bangladesh. Providing and improving public goods is one way to do that, such as fixing roads and creating safe infrastructure while a Department of Motor Vehicle Service improves driver knowledge. Support cultural norms that promote law and order and justice rather than vigilante groups driven by mob mentality. We can invade and take over. Source: I took some classes once. Story 38. My heart goes out to them. I hope they are all safe and unharmed. Story 39. Just so everyone knows, I will forward the news to someone at the Red Cross headquarters so they can share it upstairs. Story 40. Is there an update on this? I do not hear anything about it anymore. Story 41. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but nothing will change other than people continuing to talk about it all over the internet. The world has been conditioned to think they are making a difference when in reality it is as useful as gossip. Funding is often the only outcome, which is sad because online support usually boils down to donations rather than real action. We, as the people of the world, need to start standing up for ourselves. Governments do not take their people seriously, and this post and others will likely have the same outcome as the posts made in defense of net neutrality. It does not matter what people want. In the end, governments will do whatever they want regardless of our wishes. I wish you all good luck in your struggles. I really do, but this statement is as useless as it appears. Story 42. Eastern Europe was under the control of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics for more than 40 years, and no one really helped them. Let Bangladesh manage its own affairs so it can learn from history. It is not our responsibility to take care of everyone else. The same applies to the Syrian civil war. Do not intervene unless you can handle the consequences. Story 43. I believe it is not our place to intervene. I grew up in a poor, crime-ridden neighborhood, but people are more concerned about countries far away than about putting our citizens first. Story 44. Hasn't the West already destroyed enough countries through interference? At most we can sell them guns, but I think they should figure it out themselves. Story 45. What can the international community do to help the Boers in South Africa against the ongoing government killings and oppression? Story 46. The citizens of Bangladesh need to handle this themselves. We should not intervene unless asked. Story 47. We should tell them how much worse it is in the United States because Donald Trump is literally Hitler. Sarcasm. Story 48. Honestly, we should keep talking about it until the news media pick up the story from Reddit, as they always do. The story should remain on the front page for a few days in the pictures, world news, or videos communities or wherever. Story 49. Given how these interventions usually go, I would say sit back and watch. The unrest will be squashed in a matter of days, or at most a few weeks, and things will return to normal. The worst thing we can do now is repeat the mistakes made during the Arab Spring. You know what they say about good intentions. Story 50. A riot left 2 people dead and 4 people sexually assaulted. As much as I hate to say it, this is a minor incident in a long history of political violence in the region. I am not sure why this has attracted so much attention on Reddit compared with other events. Bangladesh is not at war or anywhere near it. Why has there been no Reddit outrage over the 300 mostly young protesters massacred in Nicaragua? Why was there no Reddit outrage when 823 Egyptian protesters were killed in a single day by the government in Cairo? Why is there no Reddit outrage over the millions at risk of death in Yemen? I do not mean to diminish the Bangladeshi protesters. They are remarkably brave people. But it is strange to see how much Reddit has focused on this. It is not being widely reported in the media. Story 51. We should boycott companies that use sweatshops in Bangladesh. Watch the documentary The True Cost. Story 52. You can stop buying cheap department store clothes made by slave labor in Bangladeshi sweatshop factories. The only way to bring the Bangladeshi government to its senses is through economic sanctions. But there is no oil or gas nearby, and they do not have nuclear weapons, so the international community is not very concerned about what goes on there. Unfortunately, Story 53. Americans can ask their government to stop supporting oppressive regimes. Story 54. Rule 5. AskReddit is not your soapbox, personal army, or advertising platform. Posts that attempt to promote a specific agenda, gain publicity, promote a cause or charity drive, or publicly shame a person or entity will be removed. Rhetorical and loaded questions will also be removed. Posts asking users to shame or call out specific people or groups will be removed because they lead to witch hunting rather than discussion. This is not a place to recruit members for a cause, highlight an individual or entity for positive or negative publicity, or to toot your own horn. Do not make posts or edits requesting upvotes or downvotes. Attempting to gain support for a movement, rig a contest, or form a vote brigade on Reddit will result in immediate post removal. We are not here to do your bidding. Story 55. It depends. One option is to pressure China and India to pressure Bangladesh. China and India are Bangladesh's biggest import partners. If nothing else works, money certainly can. Story 56. I am surprised not to see a single comment here explaining what is actually going on. I would assume the first step is making people aware of it, especially since most of the world has no idea that anything happened. Story 57. Come to our country as a group and stay in Gulshan 1. Notify your embassy and ask your government to help us. Since our government will not listen, perhaps your government will. Story 58. Actual constructive assistance? No. An individual from another country thousands of miles away will have absolutely no effect on this situation. If you were to physically visit, you would be in a very real, life-threatening situation and would probably be raped or murdered. Story 59. Countries in the region need to address this crisis. India, for example, needs to step up and seek a solution because it is Bangladesh's immediate neighbor. This situation could quickly become a national security threat at India's border, similar to civil war or widespread disorder, and handling it correctly would benefit India as it gains influence on the world stage. Story 60. Can we visit their embassy and protest peacefully? Story 61. By law, all charity donations must go through the government of Bangladesh. Story 62. This has become a civil war, and it appears the regime in power is encouraging it. The best protesters can do is unmask these criminals on social media in case they overthrow the regime, so the evidence can be used later to hold them publicly accountable. Outsiders should spread the evidence across platforms to reduce the risk it will be erased. Other countries might intervene if a clear case for reform is made, but under this regime, any financial or military aid would likely be misused. It is a helpless and horrible feeling when ordinary people have no power to protect children. Stay strong and have hope. The internet and social media remain powerful tools in the global information struggle for freedom. I envision a future where human representatives in government are replaced by public smart contracts with voting consensus that distribute power more equally. This could reduce the influence of lobbyists who profit from war and corruption by replacing representatives with non-human contracts created directly by and for the people. I wish I had better ideas. I truly believe a paradigm shift will break these vicious cycles. It has to. I send love and support to everyone facing this terror. Story 63. Literally nothing. Sure, Western countries can help by invading or imposing embargoes, but that would hurt the people far more than it would help. You need to let other people sort out their own issues without getting involved. We need to stop pretending that our governments meddle in other countries for the benefit of those countries rather than for our own. This desire to be seen as virtuous, as shown in the original post, makes the world worse by causing and allowing more interventionism and therefore more suffering. Story 64. What is the international community? It does not exist. Story 65. Yesterday, a group of citizens opposed to Maduro attempted to use drones to take him down. However, they failed. I think it was a bold approach against a dictator who would otherwise increase the chaos and worsen the situation. These days, a dictator can be removed in many ways. It really depends on how well organized the people are and how far they are willing to go to regain freedom. Think about it. Story 66. Airdrops of automatic weapons and Green Berets training locals. Story 67. Do you think that if citizens had access to guns, this would be happening right now? Serious question from Canada. Story 68. Bangladesh's major export is clothing, mainly men's and women's suits and shirts. If people outside Bangladesh find which retailers are buying those clothes, they could pressure those companies to stop importing Bangladeshi products. I guarantee this would have an immediate effect and the government would quickly respond if it meant losing money. Retailers, at least in the United States, indicate the country of manufacture on clothing tags. Story 69. There is nothing the international community can do except raise awareness and say no to communism. Story 70. Well, seeing as I am just hearing about this, the easiest thing is to talk about it and not stop. Story 71. Too long. Didn't read. There is nothing you can do. You can only repost images in the r/pic subreddit and act compassionately. Story 72. Call your senator or member of parliament and ask them to speak with the president to apply pressure on Bangladesh to stop the violence. Story 73. Seriously. Americans, who are we kidding? We cannot fight corruption or human rights abuses in our own country. Bangladeshis may, unfortunately, be on their own. We need to acknowledge that we are fighting many of the same forces of privilege, elitism, and corruption worldwide. We should show some mettle on our own turf rather than engaging in online cause-driven proselytizing. We cannot fight everybody's wars. Story 74. Would a boycott help? For example, a large majority of retail clothing vendors sell products made in Bangladesh, such as shirts, pants, and dresses. I will not name the brands. What if we set up petitions to the brands stating that we will boycott brands that source products from Bangladesh? Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.